Any spooky /out/ stories, guys? Not necessarily /x/. Oi so. Be me. B 13 to 14. Fairly experienced with /out/ stuff. Invite friend to go camping. He's a tubby kid with asthma and issues with seizures. Cool guy though, and I'm happy he's interested. Go to my area of the town woods. Explain conifer bough shelters. We make a small one just big enough for a wind/psychological barrier. He's having a fun time. Get to bed at dark after a few other projects. Pretty comfortable. Good sleeps.jpg. Wake up for some reason. Shri. Not phased at all, obviously a fox. Not obvious to him. He scared, tell him not to worry. Good laughs, he's still having a fun time. Hear a much lower human screaming. Oh. See bobbing flashlight booking it down a curve on the trail nearby. Aims light toward us, stance like he's leveling a gun. Yells something, can't hear. It's just a fox, it's all good. Just yells run. Not too sure what to make of it. Like 4 a.m. and teenagers, so we just fall back asleep. Normal morning, still confused from the night before. Think about what it was he said. Something like the, unintelligible, are out tonight. Ha! Was that a fox, /out/?
I have one from when I was in high school. A little backstory, we live up in northern Wisconsin and spooky stuff doesn't happen often, so I immediately brushed it off as a really messed up bear. Be 16-ish. Go out onto the back property of maybe a few hundred acres. Carrying my trusty Mosin at the time. See a few deer and that's about it. Midday I hear a pack of coyotes open up over the ridge maybe a mile or two away. I think to myself, what could have them this riled up in the middle of the day? As they stop I hear crashing and branches snapping coming from that direction. The forest is pretty open where I am, but I'm on top of another ridge so it thickens as you go down the hill. See something big and black coming through the woods. I think it's a bear and I yell, "Hey, piss off," and it keeps coming. I shoulder my Mosin and wing a warning shot into its direction. It veers right and follows the bottom of the ridge out into the swamp. I see it again and it looks like a black bear crossed with a grizzly, except it has a weird hunch and it runs like it weighs only 60 to 100 pounds. Proceed to poop my pants and unload my remaining 4 rounds and another clip. I hit the at 6 out of 10 and each time it was like you threw a snowball at it, it just goes poof. Immediately start running back to my house. It's about a 30-minute walk, but I get there in 10. No one home yet, so I drive to my grandparents just down the road. White as a sheet I explain the whole story to my grandpa, who has lived there his whole life. At first he is surprised, but when I get to the details about the size and hunch he goes white and tells me to shut up and it was just a big bear. I'm 23 now and to this day I haven't got the story he seemed to withhold out of him. Maybe it is some Ojibwe legend or a mutated bear. Either way it was pretty messed.
Go in a woods. Near a place called Fairies Waterfall. Little crevice behind a waterfall like a mini cave house. People say people used to live there and kids got snatched by fairies and made into slaves. Whatever, I'm not a kid, I'd make a pathetic slave. Set up camp. Just chillin'. Hear footsteps. Panic. Landowner telling me to move off his land. Offer him 20 pounds to let me spend the night. Ask him about Fairies Waterfall. He says I'm in it. Wake up in hospital. Apparently when I went under the waterfall I smacked my head and must have done some damage. Landowner saw me running around scared and worried I'm going to be a slave. No idea what happened to all of my gear.
Hiking Lone Star Trail in East Texas. Had spent some time in Cold Spring, Texas. It's like 7:30 p.m. and getting dark. Decide to walk to the campground south of it to spend the night there. Arrive and it's completely deserted. No cars anywhere, all doors locked, no lights anywhere. Shout around. Get no answer. Find bathroom. Shout more. Still no answers. Men's is unlocked. Women's is locked. Lights inside only flicker. Have a really bad gut feeling about it all, but I shake it. Coyotes howling. Wind blowing. All alone. Decide to sleep outside because I need the charge. Unpack my sleeping pad. All of the sudden a light flicks on in the women's bathroom. Hear footsteps inside it. Realize quickly whatever is in there had locked the door from the inside. Realize they have stayed quiet until now and not answered to any of my shouts looking for people. Pack everything up as quickly as I can and GTFO of there. End up sleeping on the side of a closed-off logging road after another hour of brisk hiking away from there. To this day I do not know what it was. In the best case scenario it was some harmless homeless person who didn't hear any of my shouts, unlikely. In the worst case it was someone hiding from me and waiting for me to go to sleep before doing God knows what.
Camping near Lake Michigan. Mostly uninhabited stretch. Up on dune. Sitting and looking out over the lake at night, it's phosphorescent sometimes. See 4 people walking single file down the beach, no flashlights or anything, figuring they came from a bonfire a mile or 2 down the beach. Kinda weird. They look directly at me. It's pitch black, moon is young, and I'm far enough up that they wouldn't be able to hear me, less see me. They stare at me a moment before continuing. Go down to the beach the next day to the fire I saw. There's a pile of mutilated plovers. It was probably druggy teenagers or something, but what the hell? Who kills a plover? They didn't do nothing.
Most spooky time I have had happened a while back, whilst I was hiking in Cumbria in North England, Ambient. Hiking through mountain footpaths. Nice landscapes and not too many people around because it was around February/March. On the 3rd day of hiking, taking path down a mountain across a ridge line at about 5 p.m. Map showed I could descend down the side of the ridge at a certain point but can't find the path. Have to just climb along the rest of the ridge then descend via this hill it meets. Whatever, I like clambering over rocks and stuff. When I get down realize have to navigate towards without paths the hostel I was planning to stay at without a path through a forest. No rivers, streams or obvious landmarks and through the forest so kinda tricky and not quite sure of where I am. Exhausted from the ridge and hike is now taking a lot longer than I expected, getting proper dark. Very cloudy so no moonlight. Then things starts getting really weird. Start hearing faint noises from a way off but in multiple directions. Strange like humming/moaning but also some sharp, whisper sounding noises. Because it's faint it's hard to tell they are noises or voices. Combination of darkness and tiredness meaning I'm struggling to navigate, very turned around at this point. Long time goes by of getting lost then backtracking. Really freaking out about being lost and these noises/voices. It's about 9:45 at this point so decide screw it and make it shelter and find my way in the morning. Beat 20 minutes later and trying to get to sleep but noise is still freaking me out. Also making movement and shapes through the trees but can't tell if I'm just imagining it. Not off. Maybe a couple of hours passed. Jolted awake by a really loud shout almost like a scream. Sounds very close. Just scanning around me but trying to stay still. Can't see a thing. Pull my knife out and grip it like a mother lover. Lol WTF am I even still doing here? Book it out of there. Legit story of that happening to me, Here I go. Go out in West Virginia, around Seneca Rocks. Hike 5 miles in and walk about 200 meters away from the path for a little bit of privacy. Establish a base camp. First night is uneventful. Next day walk around campsite and explore, follow the stream further down. Come across 2 other hikers. No big deal, but pretty rare to see people off the main paths. A friend whom I was with made some casual small talk with them. I asked a question to test to see if /out/ was full of stuff about skinwalkers. I asked, "Did you guys set up camp yet, or are you going farther down?" Both say in sync, "I wouldn't worry about it." A look of shock comes over my face, but I quickly hide it. We continue down the path. I glance back, and the younger one is staring right at me, and grins upon making eye contact. Hear howls and screeches the next couple nights till we leave. I still remember that kid's face. He grinned at me like he knew I knew.
I posted this on a throwaway account on a local hiking board under an alt. A bunch of other people have had creepy stuff happen at Benson Platte. I will never stay at these campgrounds again, it's just too much. Story time, guys. Standard hike, having fun with a good friend, we'll call him John. About 50 minutes and things get interesting. The next sequence of events happened over a 2-minute period and were pretty bizarre. John goes off NW behind some brush to take care of some business, and about 45 seconds later I see him 50 feet out but his clothes look considerably dirtier than before and his back is facing me. I immediately tell him "Nice one dude, haha," and I get a response from the NW commenting on how his number 2 was nice, and how he appreciated my feedback. I swivel around and there's nothing there. By the time John has come back, it dawns on me that his clothes don't really have anything on them. We continue and there's a copperish smell that hits us like a brick wall. We smell it for around 300 feet or so and it goes away. I mention the dirty shirt thing, and he just shrugs it off and says that's my typical, instigating sense of humor. I assure him I'm not messing with him and he just gives me a weird look and we just laugh it off. Rest of the trip is pretty uneventful, but it's worth noting that the copper smell is no longer present where I smelled it before. It's probably around 2 once we hit the sack, and we're each in our own tarp tents. I didn't wake up all night, but John didn't sleep practically at all and said around 4:15 there was a coppery smell that didn't go away for at least a half hour. No footsteps or anything, but the smell did subside, and it was immediate, not gradual. Never camping there again.
On the other side, I caused a spooky experience. On a college field trip to an island to study marine biology. Girlfriend and I are getting drunk at night since we're done with our assignments. We decided to take the short, 5 minutes, walk from our hotel to the boardwalk overlooking the beach. I've got my backpack of hiking stuff with me and a bottle of sake. We sit on the boardwalk for a minute and start making out. End up pounding the hell out of her on the boardwalk at midnight. After we finish we see a group of hikers going through the dunes. They turn their flashlights onto us but we're flat on the boardwalk so they can't see us. Reach into my backpack and grab my mountain lion call. Make an ear-piercing woman-like screaming with the call. The hikers poop themselves trying to get out of there.
Ooh boy, dat some spook. Mine is not that spooky. Hiking in woods in my town in western Connecticut. Sometimes camp there overnight. Every time we do it feels like time does not move. Always finding weird stuff back there, human-sized pile of hair and magnetic tape, coolers full of raw clams and robachu scene, piles of rocks in very remote parts. This hike my friend and I are going to shoot BB guns at this chime box. Chime box has a magnet on the top and little metal balls on the bottom rolling around and chimes that are hung in the middle long ways. The idea is that you balls get stuck to the magnet and over time fall and hit the chimes and make some noise. Show him in the parking lot. Turn it upside down, Balls stick. Hit it. Balls fall down on the chimes and make a noise. Go about 3 miles in a woods. Not that far desu. Find a stump and I'm going to place the box on it. Flip over box to get the balls to stick to the magnet. They don't stick? How does this not work? Magnets don't work in the woods? Confused, intrigued and mildly weirded out. Shoot it anyways. Then there was a random thunderstorm with hail and we left and got soaked.
Be me. Be in a woods with friends. Hike out to a lake. There are a bunch of other campers there. Hike a bit away from the other campers and set up campsite. Take a swim with your hiking buddies. 3 shirtless drunk brothers walk by the shore. They pass your campsite. Keep walking. Oh bruh, this spot is killer. Watch in horror as bro proceeds to start setting up camp within 20 meters of your site. Bro starts hacking at a 3-foot diameter stump with a small hatchet. Dumpass, just go pick up sticks, bruh.
B14. Hiking in a woods off the highway with some friends. Going up a path, turn the corner and there is a half-eaten baby deer carcass. Little spooked but continue on. On a lower path that goes along a tallish dirt cliff. See 2 little holes dug out in the side. Blackbird body in the bottom hole. Blackbird head in the top hole. Maximum spook.
This reminds me of. Once I was hiking the Long Star Trail in East Texas. Super tired, get to campground. Empty, decided to crash in the bathroom instead of dealing with my tent. Darkness falls. Hear shouting outside the building. Nope.jpg. Lock the door. Crazy dude is yelling like he's looking for someone just outside the bathroom. He goes in the men's side and is in there for like 30 minutes. He leaves, and I wait quietly for an opportunity to escape. After an hour finally feel safe enough to turn the light back on and move around a bit. Not sure who it was or what he was looking for, but I want about to find out.
Be me 15. First time ever hunting. Dad takes me to an old abandoned house in the middle of nowhere that my grandfather had inherited from a relative. Dad had turned one of the windows into a blind with a view onto a large field with a deer feeder. Leaves me there with a Tika T33206. Leaves and tells me that he's coming back before dark. I wait for maybe 3 hours and hear a weird sound. Kinda like a moose but much louder and lower. See that something is moving on the field but can't see what, only that small trees are snapping around it. It's gone as fast as it appeared. 2 hours later a buck comes to the feeder and I take aim. Hear the same noise again and the buck starts running without a second thought. At the edge of the forest I see a large black glob that wasn't there before. It starts moving and I get a good look. Grizzly sized, but sort of shapeless. Can't see its feet, assume that they are buried in the snow. It goes back in the forest and disappears. Maybe 1 hour later Dad comes back. As soon as his car engine stops the noise starts. This time louder. Dad runs in and is clearly scared. Says, "Are you okay? Did you see it?" I reply, "See what?" Dad says nothing and grabs me by the hand and pulls me to the car. Pushes me into the car and starts driving without a word. I tell him I left my gloves to the house. He tells me we can get new ones. We drive home and he avoids me for at least a week. And that's the first and last time he took me hunting there. I tried asking about it a few years back. And he said to never go searching for it. Other than that he refuses to talk about it.
Okay, hey, yes, there are a few, Siuslaw Newfoundland story. By the summit on the way out to Newport/Hebo Fork by the Nestucca River. I used to go camping for days, even weeks at a time. Easy to just pick berries, fish and kill stuff and just live off the land. It's fantastic. As previously mentioned in my other ordeal, I have a bivvy tent that's really cramped, backpack and sweater is my pillow, sleep next to gun etc. Worth noting that there is a lot of drug/criminal activity due to illegal logging and grow ops. In August 2014 I was up there for a 2-week period. About a week and a half in, some weird stuff started happening. I kept hearing smaller trucks. I knew it was a logging crew because there was VHF activity. They stay off CB since it's too easy/obvious. Around 10 I hear chainsaws followed by 3 gunshots and yelling. Otherwise things are entirely silent. I think they are far away and quickly wake up, thinking about resituating and moving. Really glad I didn't wake up sooner and start moving, as about 20 seconds later I hear voices and I just stay still. 5 seconds more and there is a flashlight beam shining through my tent. I am horrified. Gun isn't at ready, still in sleeping bag, and there are the outlines of 2 grown men hovering about my tent. I immediately and correctly conclude that they think I was busting on their logging. After hearing over there is more likely I hear them walk away. Dumbfounded, I look outside after about 20 minutes and notice that mud tracks cleared my guilt in their mind. Had it not have rained I would probably not be here. Ended up moving camp closer to the very summit. Rest of the stay was uneventful. Let me know if you want more stories. I have only had that one that could be considered remotely paranormal though. Probably was nothing.
Scariest thing that's happened to me in the woods so far. Backpacking in Yosemite with my girlfriend and another couple maybe a month ago. Going to a high camp before they open for the season. One of the bridges to the camp was swept away this winter, so you have to hike off the trail a bit to reach it. The camp is completely deserted when we get there, haven't seen anyone for hours since we left the trail. We figure everyone else is camping near the trail on the other side of the river, so we have something like 30 campsites to ourselves. We set up our tents, explore around a couple hours and light a fire in the main camp area, still no sign of anyone. Later that evening we're drinking and dicking around the fire, and I make like I'm going to grab a hot can of beans from the fire as a joke. Both girls scream, which we think is hilarious, so I wrap my hand to actually grab the beans, but yell like I'm being burned, so they scream again. We laugh about it for a few minutes and go back to screwing around. Suddenly hear some tramping and some guy comes rushing out of the woods towards us with a goddamn ice axe in hand. There's 2 seconds of a collective what the hell before he says he heard some screaming and asked if we were okay. We say we're fine and he headed back towards the river and out of sight. Spend the rest of the night half joking about it and hoping Ice Axe Man was mentally stable. We found out later there were a bunch of campers across the river and there was a tree crossing a bit farther down. But it was creepy as hell imagining him lurking around in the woods the whole time we were there. Also, it was the middle of summer and we hadn't seen any snow around, so it seemed really bizarre for him to have an ice axe at the time, but he was probably headed up to the higher peaks.
Not really spooky, but the thread I topped this up for died. Still fits here. Be me. Get lost in the woods like 10 years ago when I was like 14. Walk up on a house that shouldn't have been there and decide to turn around, lost the path somehow going back. Be out there for 5 hours in 95-degree Alabama heat and rain, it's getting dark, starting to rain harder. Start to lose my cool, been wandering aimlessly for hours, finally come out of the woods on a path at its dead end somehow, so start walking. Walking for like 2 hours, find a deer stand. Sit for a minute, consider sleeping and stand for the night. Decide to keep on walking, it's like 9 p.m. by this point and I'm so friggin' tired. Finally see a gate and some houses, thank God. Walk up to the first house and knock on the door, was going to ask where I was and if I could use the phone. Lady won't answer, I can see her through the window but she won't answer, so I just keep going. Down the road, didn't want to scare anybody. See lady and man in the road. They ask if they can help me. Exhausted, I try and fail to keep myself together. On the verge of tears, ask them where am I, been lost for like 12 hours, can I borrow a phone to call a ride? They ask where I came from, point back to the trail. Lady says there's nothing in that direction, it dead ends 3 miles down the path at a deer stand. Nod and tell them my address. Lady says that it's a town over. Sit down to breath for a second. They tell me, somehow wound up 20 miles from home in the middle of nowhere next to a hunting club which I just came through. Said if I hadn't found that path I would have probably been out there for days. They give me a ride back home, I say thank you and I go inside and contemplate unaliving myself. For being such a wimp and because I am so tired. Parents don't even care, didn't notice I was gone. Just go to sleep hoping I never see any of them again. Still bothers me desu, I feel like such a bitch for losing it like that.
Nothing supernatural, but I might as well tell the story of the most terrified I have ever been in the woods, and y'all are welcome to laugh and call me a wimp. 10 to 11. Live way out in the countryside, but my own property is treeless. Grow up trespassing in the woods behind my house, but I was taught well, leave no trace. Damage nothing, no fires unless self-contained, and I bring fuel such as espit stoves. Allowed a long knife because there's huge coyote packs that live off hunters' scraps in the woods. Back there, and I was small enough to be considered prey. Bring black lab/boxer moot we took in, Buster, kindest dog I ever knew, but so stupid. No need for leash, I have never seen a soul in these woods, and he listens well to simple commands like home. We get into deep honeysuckle thicket, Hess running laps around me while I am moving at a snail's pace. Trip and fall low to the ground, realize the honeysuckle has tunnel-like trails under its branches, going all over the place, perfect size for a dog or crawling human to use. Now making massive headway, moving fast and paying little attention to where I am going exactly. Get slightly lost, but remember not to panic. I sit down and rest, drink some water and offer some to Buster. He doesn't want to drink despite us spending a god 3 hours trekking through the woods. Wonder why when suddenly I realize I hear the creek, I know where I am again. Rush to the creek to cool off and work out the best way to return home. Break through the underbrush and out into the open of the creek, take a few breaths of air and realize it smells off. Exhaust and a smell I did not yet know, booze. Get low and catch my breath while looking around. Watch my dog cause I figure if something's wrong the dog will know before I do. Suddenly there's the loud strain of machinery and a tractor with a bulldozer on the front smashes through the brush and a large tree on the other side of the stream. Dang it, why did I assume the dog was smart? Think about how much trouble I am in. I'm trespassing and I've got a knife. This could be bad, he might just shoot me for all I know. Time to go, if I stay low he won't find me, besides he can't cross the creek in that tractor. Hush tone, tell dog to go home. Dog takes off back into the bush and I crawl after him. He gets lost 2 or 3 times, but I make enough sound he finds his way back to me. We get back to familiar land, he take off for home, don't see him again till I get back. Adrenaline high fades and I stumble home, tired but happy I am okay and didn't get caught. Pay more attention to sounds and smells every time I'm in the woods from then on. Consider myself better for the experience, but I can't deny I was very spooked in the moment. Nothing worries me more in a woods than people.
Not as spoopy as in didn't see anything, but anyway. 2 weeks ago, overnighter with a friend. Staying in a forest hut in Estonia. The hut is basically round in shape, with a fireplace and a metal chimney hanging over it. No windows, so dark inside even during the day. Evening was quiet and nice, away from civilization. Get to the hut to sleep, block the door with a board so it can't be opened from the outside. At night I use earplugs to block out the birds. Morning comes, or so I think, still dark inside. Earplugs have escaped my ear canals, so hear everything. First, sounds like a little girl is prancing around and chattering. Okay, drift off to sleep. I am awakened by a metallic clang, like something was thrown against our chimney. Still dazed, I lay still and listen. Skittering on the roof and running footsteps all around. My friend didn't wake up or react at all. More footsteps and then a screech. Another loud bang on the door. Something was circling the hut, but boy was I glad we'd barricaded the door. I stayed there in my sleeping bag motionless, trying to not make sound. Seemed like at least 2 hours. Finally friend woke up also. Asked him if he'd heard any of that. No. Explained to him the situation, went outside together with hatchets in hand and well. Nothing to be seen. But the 2 pre-chopped logs on the ground in front of the hut. And the dents they left in the door. Now I'm a noob in camping, started just this year, been out solo 3 times, with a buddy about 7. This was pretty spooky, even considering we were sleeping in a fortress, log walls and everything. Still have no idea what was out there. I've heard every animal there is in my country, like this one time, again this year, we were pretty spooked by branches breaking constantly near our camp. The animal approached us at night and my friend told me in the morning it was probably a moose, heavy breathing, came very close. Anyway, I digress.
One of the lamest spook stories ever compared to most everything else in this thread, but I think it's still worth telling. B9-ish. Live in a picturesque suburban neighborhood with a high school well within walking distance. Love to go outside since, well, computers weren't really a big thing and I didn't like consoles. The nearby forest was pretty casual. Everything was spread out, only dense part was this one area we were afraid of going to. Went into the forest and walked along the creek with a friend named Carter countless times till the point we knew the entire area by heart. I can still tell you exactly where the buried shopping cart and hobo cave, an enclave in a clay wall of the creek where we found an old blanket, are exactly. Point is though, the one part we never went into was that dense path leading up to the high school. Thing was dark and thick, spooked us enough naturally to never go in. Eventually curiosity got the better of us and we go in. Nothing happens of course, and over the course of a month or 2 we keep on going in multiple times. It becomes a familiar place, but we were always on edge just because, intuition. Pick related was the area, path to the high school was to the right. Along that path we find some old tattered cheerleader pom-poms and we make up stories regarding it. Eventually we decide the funniest one is that there's a creature named Precious, probably because we were reading The Hobbit in school, that lurks around the woods. Described pretty much just as Gollum but with pitch black eyes, and its preferred method of killing was beating people to death with said pom-poms. Anyways, one day we're walking the trail as normal and Carter suddenly stops in his tracks. I ask him what's wrong and he says he feels weird. Ask him if he saw Precious jokingly, give him some more grief because he was the joker in our circle of friends, but he was straight-faced. Won't forget the look on his face ever, probably. There's a shrill, high-pitched woman's scream of help. Unnaturally loud. In the pic, it was down the hill across from us. Carter opens his mouth and screams like a girl, but that's not saying much because I was already booking it the hell out of there. He runs out right behind me sobbing hysterically. We don't stop running the entire trip back, but my little 9-year-old body was experiencing the adrenaline dump of a lifetime. Don't even feel it until we're back on the cul-de-sac. Included in the pic is a random staircase because, well, there was a random staircase right about there. I remember reading a while back some obviously fake story of staircases that lead to nowhere, but I feel like it can't just be a coincidence. Or maybe it is. Dunno. But yeah, that's the entire story. We went back in once with 2 other friends a month later but nothing happened. Carter and I grew apart over time, and by the end of middle school we stopped going, and I've never been in since. If it's really important for me to prove myself on an anonymous image board, I can probably head back and take some pics of the area in a couple days.
Be 14 years old, me in a camping. Go hiking with other kids. Place is a dry valley. In the mountains there are strange military facilities or something like that. Some guy tell us to get down and come with him, but it was very strange. We run and came back to the camping. Another weird thing happening in that camping is that it was full of cripples.
Be camping with my dad. He wakes me up early morning hours cause he heard a bear. We sit there with our knives out listening to this bear tearing through our stuff for a good 10 minutes. Agree that 2 knife-wielding men could kill a bear. So no pussying out letting it eat one of us, we fight it together if we have to. It starts scratching our tent. Dad yells, "Hey, get out of here," and we both charge outside the other end of the tent ready for the battle of the ages. Bear obliges and gets out of there the second it realizes the tent creatures are alive. Poor thing looked like a guilty dog as it ran away startled.
Spoopy story from my early pre/out/ days. Be 16 in southern Florida. Visiting friend in this decently sized neighborhood called Victoria Woods with my then girlfriend. Behind the neighborhood is about a 4 or 5 acre stretch with some clearings but also a lot of trees and abandoned houses. That area was scheduled to be completely cleared and built on to expand the neighborhood. Decide to break away from my friend's house and explore that area with my girl. Hop a wooden fence and walk about 5 minutes into the woods, keeping the biggest clearing to my left. Get to one of the abandoned houses. It's covered in graffiti and trash. House has a small shed with the entrance closed off by wooden planks, only a single chair inside and hundreds of papers thrown around it. Kinda spooked, but gotta be manly for my girl. Notice writing on the walls of the shed saying like "Rise and hear it coming." Head into the house and look around, old rotting photographs in the kitchen and broken glass everywhere. Rest of the house is empty except for a single couch jammed into a closet. Writing in the closet says "Stay out." GF holding on to me saying she wants to leave now. It was getting pretty dark, so I pulled out my lighter since back then phones didn't have flashlights. Tell her we should check out the backyard before heading back. She feels better cause we have some light now. Head to the backyard and there's a bloody mattress just chilling there and what looks like wires poking through it. Pretty spooked, so I grab her hard and turn her around to get the hell out of there. Hear what sounds like a gong and turn around quickly to see what looks like a kid dressed in trash bags at the edge of the trees circling the backyard. Nope, the hell out of there fast as hell. My girlfriend is crying at this point. Run through the house and past the shed, but somehow end up in the middle of the big clearing instead of it being to my right now. Look for the nearest light from one of the houses and run towards its fence. What felt like a 5-minute walk before turned into a 20-minute run. Forcing myself to not look back, my stomach is in goddamn knots. Make it to the fence and hop over, pushing my girl over first. When I'm at the top of the fence, I look back and see the trash bag kid in the middle of the clearing waving at me. Realize he was behind us the whole time. Jump over and book it back to my friend's house. We're both white as a sheet when we get back. He jokes that we must have gotten caught getting frisky by someone. Alcohol later on calms my nerves and we end up having a good time. See the trash bag kid in my dreams that night. It looked like he was looking for something in my closet. Looking back on it, it was probably just some kid or kids playing a prank on us, since behind that area was a smaller neighborhood full of trailers. I still remember the feeling of the adrenaline pumping through my veins. It was insane.
Camping in the mountains near Santiago, Chile. Hear from some local guy that in some old farm ruins nearby a bunch of people were executed during Pinochet's regime. Hear women screaming and crying, and gunshots late at night.
One of the craziest things to ever happen to me has nothing to do /x/skeletons, or unidentifiable animals. It didn't even happen at night. Junior in college working on BS in natural resources. Summer break biology, forestry, and natural resources majors have cabins we work out of at a major lake by school. 3 of us there to help with ongoing study of invasive plants. Arrive at cabin and notice it is unlocked. Someone must have beat me here. Stuff is all over in cabin: clothes, trash, food. Start picking up stuff, trying to clean up before professor shows. Finish up, put up my stuff, no one else around yet. Decide to go fishing. Walk to bank and start fishing around a point. There's a guy washing himself in the lake, assume it's a student. Hey man, why don't you go to the showers? Doesn't respond, but starts to get out. Realize the dude is completely naked. Are you kidding me? There's a kid's campground pretty close to here, dummy. Start to go confront him. This guy is not a student. He puts on his shorts, grabs his stuff and starts jogging back toward the cabin. This mother lover was staying in the university cabin. Catch up to him just outside of it and ask him what he's doing. He starts apologizing, saying he's just backpacking around the area and found the cabin unlocked and wanted to get out of the recent rain. It hasn't rained in at least a week. He says he just wants to get his stuff and leave. He left the place a mess, but didn't visibly break in or damage anything, so I let him get his things. Tell him he's lucky no one else showed up yet because they'd probably call the cops. Guy thanks me and splits down the road. Here's where it gets messed though. Buddy gets to the cabin that evening. Tell him about it and he asks me to describe the guy. Pulls out phone, gets on local news site. Finds recent story of an escaped murderer from a prison mid-state. It was the same guy.
Lel, I have a similar story. Doorbell rings and I go answer. It's mailman with package. Sign for package. I check mailbox for regular mail. Out of nowhere, black refugee guy comes up to the gate. He's sweaty, weak, and barely able to stand up. Tries to open gate but I hold it closed. He says give 5 urines for bus. I say no and direct him to a coffee shop so he can bother the people there. He tries again to open the gate but I hold it closed. He's all sweaty and disgusting, so I don't want to touch him. I say nothing to him until he eventually leaves. I go back inside and forget about it. 10 minutes I hear a white minibus/van pull up. 2 guys get out and start searching the area while another one follows in the van. Shaved heads, 6 feet 3 inches, short beard, dressed like nurses. Van stops at the end of the street, engine tunning. Half an hour later, nurses return. Holding the black refugee on his tippy toes in a crazy looking finger/wrist lock. Days later I find a crumpled up piece of paper. Has details for a patient on day release from a nearby mental hospital. The face when I almost had to fight a smelly mentally disturbed great man.
Visiting girlfriend's parents in Northish, Ontario, near the extremity of the Niagara Escarpment. She spends the day at the spa with her girlfriends, so I rent a mountain bike to explore the backcountry. Enjoy some top-notch single trail mountain biking. Leave the main trails, start following rough single trail, expecting more technical routes. Get deeper and deeper into the woods. I maintain good bearings so I know how to get back out. Eventually I'm very deep and the pre-established path is barely present. Feel that familiar /out/spoopy feeling where everything goes silent. The wind, the birds, the leaves, everything. Suddenly the ride isn't fun and I'm going quarter speed, feeling like I'm scanning for a predator. Dodge a bunch of broken glass in a weird clearing that appears in a sudden clearing. Hear a gravelly voice that simply says get him. Hear a growling beast charging through the bush. I do a 180 and nope out of there at Mach speed. Just tearing it through the path, way faster than I've ever rode on a mountain bike. Never looked back, but I could hear something chasing me the entire ride until I cleared a creek. Look back, feeling safe, and I just see the woods and nothingness. Very possible I simply wound up accidentally trespassing and some old man sicked their dog on me, but the eeriness and fear through the whole situation was something I've never felt before or again. I later looked at satellite imagery, and based on approximations of where I was, there were no formal dwellings in a nearby vicinity.
Here's a creepy one. Used to go to some hot springs in the mountains near my town. Usually a couple locals, hippies, weirdos hanging out in the pools. It's 2 a.m. Me and my friend are talking with some college kids in the main spring. All of a sudden hear someone shouting from the thicket. Get your hands off of her. We all freeze. Then louder, get your hands off of her. Everyone freaks out and splits. Hot springs get closed to the public a week later.
This happened when I was super young, yet somehow it's managed to always stay with me. Ontario, Canada. Swimming in Great Lake with brother and cousins. Shitty area of waterfront, barely any beach, maybe 1 to 2 meters. Young, so we don't go all that far from the shore, around like 5 to 8. Don't remember how, but managed to get some distance away from our parents who were chilling on the beach. Beach disappears quickly and trees hang over the river, leaves basically draping over the water in areas. Swim through one only to find a giant black shape floating close to me, somehow not terrified by its sudden appearance, must have thought it was trash or something. Realize it's a dead giant bird with black feathers, easily bigger than me or my parents. Parents eventually find me and the dead bird, they seem surprised by it and get us out of the water. Smells like death and is clearly some giant-ass bird with its wings spread out. Parents rush us back to the car. Remember seeing a yellow/orange construction vehicle moving up to the water's edge with some people around it looking like they were going to try and scoop it out as we were about to leave. I've never experienced any sort of skinwalkers or goatmen in my adult out experiences. Home alone in family cabin. Small dog, only one with me. Always paranoid that it'll get taken by some coyote or something, so constantly check up on it and don't let it outside on its own. Chilling out waiting for others to get back, wonders if I closed the door. Walks over to glass screen door, it's closed. Admiring the view when I notice something moving on the top of our old pine, top got blown off in a storm. Giant bird just chilling there. Tree is at the end of the property and I know the bird species in the area, wasn't a turkey vulture or something. Eventually he just flies off and I lose sight of him. Anyone else experienced bizarre bird sightings while /out?
Not spoopy at all, but most memorable camping experience. First time camping. Literally never been in the woods before and didn't know what I was doing. Dad was an Eagle Scout, so I feel a little better. This whole experience was a few months ago, so I can recall almost all of the details. We rent some backpacks, a tent, and some sleeping bags and decide to go hiking in New York in the Finger Lakes area and go to Letchworth State Park. We walk the Finger Lakes Trail and it's breathtaking. I have never seen a gorge before, so this is absolutely crazy for me. We hike 8 miles into our spot where we would set up camp. Everything goes as planned and we boil ramen over a fire. Head off to sleep. I just hear banging and branches snapping all around us. I don't sleep at all and I hear what I thought was a man yelling in the distance. I can't sleep because of the constant noise and my imagination scarring the hell out of me. I have it in my head that there is a methed up homeless guy living like that Primitive Tools guy on YouTube. I have it in my head that this homeless man wants my ass. Daybreak. I get out of the tent and am scared shitless. I turn around and investigate the site. There are scratch marks on the tree that we put our food in. I look back down the hill the campsite is on. There's a black bear staring at me. Autism activates. Grab my phone and take a picture of the bear. Open my small pen knife and let out a whimper/yell. Wake my 56-years/old dad. We pack out shit and speed walk out way down an access trail. Get to the road. Uber our way back to our car. This is why I can't do overnights anymore. In for new friend. I know.
Here's one that's actually real. B14. Friend is similar age, and we didn't have much to do on school holidays. Mom and Dad got me a bike for Christmas, and he had one too. Start going trail riding in the bushland near and around our town. Going along a pretty well-established track, see one of the smaller ancillary trails that bleed off of it. These are pretty common. This one was literally just where the grass has been trampled so much by hikers that it's a line of dirt about a foot wide. Friend and I have explored a ton of these. Decide to cruise down this one. Our parents know where we are, and the sun is shining. Keep going, and the tree coverage becomes thicker and thicker. Reach a fairly wide stream, the track takes off parallel to it. The track has about 2 meters of foliage between it and the stream, sometimes wider, sometimes narrower, but there are parts you can't see the water. Keep going, before there's a really sharp dip. I remember I had to slam on my bike's brakes to not pitch over. Friend and I dismount, and realize the track has ended about 10 meters forwards from where we are. Should mention at this point we're pretty far from the track. We were dumb kids. Also it had been raining hard the last few days. Look back at the steep dip, it's a sheer drop of about 1.5 feet, but the recent rain has eroded it and caused the shelf to fall down, so it wasn't as steep. Probably why we didn't fall off. It has clearly been formed with a shovel, somebody has deliberately done this. Looking around we see a clothesline between 2 trees, some old tracksuit pants and shirts hanging up. A really ramshackle little cloth tent, more like a tattered blanket suspended between 2 more trees. Some other things lying around, pile of garbage, a burnt out few logs and a hole clearly meant as a fire pit. We're both pretty quiet, we figured out quickly that somebody lives here, but it felt wrong for some reason. Realize why. Oh no, the foliage between this place and the stream is pretty thick. There isn't any wind, the trees would have dispersed it. So why are several bushes swaying? Friend, who is usually not known for his rational thinking, suddenly raises his voice to normal speaking level, as opposed to our whispering. We better go anon. My dad will be wondering where we went. We lift our bikes over the drop, and walk them back up the path. Had the feeling of being watched for about half the time we walked, and then rode back to the main path. Ride for about 10 minutes until we're back in a pretty built-up area, a few houses are visible. My friend and I then avoided that trail when riding, and stuck to places that were visible from the main track. It freaked me out. Went back there a few months ago out of curiosity. I found the steep drop but not the little campsite, or traces that someone had been there. Not the most exciting story, but thought I'd share, since it was true.
Camping in a woods in this small mountain range about an hour out of town with my dad and brother, about 10 years old. Always been a very light sleeper. Middle of the night, wake up suddenly. Hear very light footsteps that sounded like bare feet padding along. Hear very soft female whisper, "Should we take these?" "No, I can't smell any girls among them," responds a male voice. Hear soft footsteps moving away. Can't sleep for the rest of the night. Terrified by this ever since. Never camped anywhere near there again. What the hell was that? Were we almost murdered for some satanic ritual or something?
Reminds me of this one time with my GF, not that /out/ or spooky though. Going for a walk in local woods. Come across a rickety wooden shack with cast iron roof. There are a couple of others nearby. Nobody seems to be about. Approach it cautiously. Peer in through a dirty plastic window. It's dark inside, can't see much. Apart from a pair of eyes staring back out at me. Nope the hell outta there.
Not particularly spooky, but hey. Be me, 12 years old lad. With parents on vacation in Norway. We camped near a reservoir lake. Don't get too close to the water anon, the currents here are strong and might pull you under. Go look at the water anyway. See my own reflection, try to look closer. Slip and actually fall in. It was freezing cold. Dad managed to hop my arm and pull me out. Crying. Turns out the lake's generators were off, but they were really pissed off at me. Bragging afterwards that I saw schools of fishes.
Not much since I'm not in /out/ist, but I'd like to start going /out/ more. These spoopy stories are kinda discouraging, and dying in the woods alone isn't a nice prospect, but I'll see how to manage staying alive. Anyways, now to spoopy stuff. Seeing a big-ass bear chilling 500 meters away from me and a friend on a school trip in the woods. Hearing weird voices and sounds on a difficult trail by a creek, big-ass rocks so it would have been difficult to run away. Finding weird symbols carved in trees and spoopy totems in the forest. The area in which all this happened is notorious for /x/tier stories such as alien encounters and supernatural stuff, so I was scared shitless as an impressionable 13-year-old.
Florida man here, Everglades story for y'all. I'm not a real hardcore hiker, but I love exploring and camping. Begin green text. About 2 years ago, decide to go hike through the Everglades. Never really been on foot through a swamp like that, so I decided to just do it. Loaded down with big ass spine crushing backpack. Stuff you'd expect like a sleeping bag, mosquito net, propane lamp, a tarp, GPS, gun, machete, water, and for food I got a bunch of MREs that my uncle gave me when he retired from the Air Force. Wearing a one-piece wading suit, boots included. Plan is to hike out south, find dry ground, sleep, go back north to civilization in the morning. Begin hike. About 3 hours in, and pretty good so far. Trying to stick to the high ground and tread the water carefully. Don't want to get messed by water moccasins or any gators that may be trying to protect their young. Another hour in, and along the way I find an old shirt on a log. It's dirty but not torn. Decide to pick it up and take it, don't want to leave litter hanging around the Everglades. Might even be useful later somehow. 3 hours later, the sun is setting. Wading waist deep through the swampiest swamp stuff you can imagine, praying to God there aren't any crocs in this part of the swamp. The Everglades is home to both gators and crocodiles losing daylight, need to find some dry land where I can set up for the night. Finally find some land, just barely enough of a clearing in the trees for me to lay down my sleeping bag. Light my propane lamp. Propane and propane accessories.jpg. Too bad it's not a fire, cause my wading suit is bog wet on the outside. I'm dry on the inside of it but still cold. Sit around for a while just resting. Try to fiddle with the radio so I have some company. No signal, but at least I have the chorus of bug noises surrounding me. Hear something big in the swamp to the left of me. Not a splash like something falling, but a slosh like something moving. Immediately drop radio like it's a hot iron, grab flashlight and gun. Scan the area left of me, and everywhere else just to be sure. Nothing's there. Think to myself that it's probably just a gator, but it sounded bigger than a gator. There could be a panther or a Bigfoot or something staring at me right now for all I know. Keep my hand on my gun for a good 3 minutes, drop my guard and start preparing an MRE for dinner. I think it was some beef rigatoni or something. Little piece of chocolate for dessert in there too. My uncle said that these were absolute shit back in the 80s, but to me they seem pretty damn good nowadays. Pour some water in the bag and heat that hell up with the power of science. The only thing I had to eat all day other than a granola bar and an out here in swamp I felt like I was dining at the Ritz. Chowing down on this beef rigatoni and I hear the noise in the water again. In the same place, it sounds like. Set food on ground, get gun and flashlight again, this time I'm more scared. Scan with flashlight. I see the 2 glints of light in the dark swamp for the fraction of a second as I wave my flashlight past. Please God no. JPG. Pretty sure it was a pair of eyes. If it was, then something has been sitting in the swamp to my left for the past 15 or so minutes watching me. Convince myself the glints were just some water drops on a branch reflecting the light. Continue eating food, finish food, decide to use the old shirt I found earlier to dry the outside of my wading suit as much as I can. Don't want to go to sleep wet and cold. Make sure to turn off propane lamp before I go to sleep. Don't want to risk starting a gas fire. Get in my sleeping bag, throw mosquito net over me so I don't get eaten by bugs overnight. Fall asleep with my gun and my flashlight in the bag with me, gun on safety so I don't accidentally shoot my foot off. Get woken up in the dead night by a different noise. This noise isn't a heavy sloshing noise, it's more like someone slowly and carefully stepping through the water. Try to appear sleeping and motionless for a few seconds while I grab my light and gun in the bag. Quickly turn flashlight on and point both light and gun in the direction of the noise. Expected boogeyman. It's a panther. It's for real a panther. A goddamn panther has been watching me all night and was walking in the water towards my camp while I slept. Felt like I could shit enough to fill my entire wading suit in that moment and then have shit to spare to wade through. The panther stopped dead and stared at me as I shone my flashlight on it. Pray to God it doesn't make me have to shoot it, what with being endangered and all. The panther and I have a staring contest for at least a full 5 seconds. Curse at the panther. Panther bolts the hell out of there and away from my camp. Turn my light off and put my gun back in my bag with me, still staying on alert listening for any noises. Some amount of time passes, no more big noises, fall asleep. Wake up, thankful to still have all my limbs. Trek north back to civilization as planned, come out of the swamp looking like a damn Bigfoot. Go home and sleep without fear of panthers.
Not outwardly scary or anything but certainly creepy. Be me. 14 years old hiking with dad in Rhode Island woods behind our house. Huge preserve essentially untouched with very rough trails. Long hike for me at the time, 4 hours out there. Come up upon this old tree. A whole bunch of old booze bottles are littered around it, names carved into the tree, probably about 50 of them. All go back to the 50s. Most recent was in the early 60s. Literally in the middle of a dense oak and pine forest with no roads a few miles in, not an easy place to get to. Remember the tree a few years later when I'm 17 to 8. Try for years to find the tree, never find it. Seems like it disappeared. On that same hike with my dad. Wrapping up hike. See a small brook that a large stone has covered making a makeshift bridge. Probably about 5 miles into the woods right now. There's still warm ashes on the stone. Awful deep for a homeless person. Why were they here? Strange place for a camp. There's a few plastic bags and some toilet paper. We GTFO.
Oh, I got another. Hiking in the woods behind a family member's backyard. Considering turning around because briars are so thick. See an old metal gate between two stone walls and a rough trail behind it. What the heck, we follow it. Things start getting weird quickly. We find a bunch of construction materials strewn all over the place, concrete pipes for culverts, etc. Strange. There is the remnants of an old chain link fence that's now either fallen over or has holes cut in it. Getting a little spooked, but we go past it. Shortly after the fence there are these weird metal bridges that extend over dried up ponds. Moss is growing on the bridges and there are some holes in them. Lots of animals, saw a pack of wild dogs or coyotes running off in the distance, some deer, and there were even snakes, a lot of them, in the basin of the dried up ponds. Keep hiking and we see a structure just out of the woods. Nervous, but we keep going. It looks just like the raptor cage from Jurassic Park. I'm not making this up, I swear. We hear all sorts of strange bird calls. We GTFO because there's a strange feeling to leave. Years later ask my dad about the structure because he grew up in that area. He says that there used to be a bird sanctuary back there. Do a little digging about it. Apparently the owner was diagnosed with prostate cancer and killed himself. There's a small mansion a little further in the woods that was abandoned but maintained. The bird sanctuary was in complete disrepair. It explains all the weird animals. The guy died in the 80s, so there wasn't as much regulation, I guess. My brother went back a few years later and said that on the inside of the bird sanctuary there were cages, big and small. Years go by, visiting friend who lives down the street. Tell him about the place. We go to check it out. Again, super hard hike because the trail had overgrown at this point and the prickers were even worse. Finally we see the structure. Navigate the fallen fences and prickers to the point where I'm arm's length away from the wall of the building. Hear a super loud banging noise, like someone throwing rocks against sheet metal. Book it the hell out of there. Super creepy place, and the story doesn't help. I remember in high school some kids crept into the house/mansion and made some art flick about the guy hanging himself.
Be me, 16-year-old kid who's a total nerd. Dad wants me to be a man or something. Go hiking with dad, grandpa, uncle, and cousin. Basically the whole clan. I may have been a nerd, but I was pretty eager to learn about being an outdoorsman. Grandpa knew this and had been teaching me stuff for the last year. As a side note, I need to go visit the old fella. He has a new property in the middle of nowhere. Anyway, dad, uncle and cousin don't know how much I've been learning. They think I'm a weird shut-in because I don't like sports and beer. I've been having a recurring nightmare for the last 2 years. It's always in this one specific patch of bushland and it changes, but I recognize the trees. Usually ends with something chasing me, and I always felt like prey. Dreams are all different, and sometimes I'm able to survive or fight back, but every single dream has this predator in the same dried up forest. Anyway, our little convoy rocks up to the campsite, little area by a stream and still inside of the country road. In the outer fringes of the forest. Looks pretty good so far. We start exploring, my cousin, dad and myself really just walking through the trees, drifting from walking next to each other and several meters apart. Pretty fun actually, we were really just looking around. Grandpa was at the campsite being old. Realize that the trees are becoming more familiar. Oh hell no. JPEG. This bushland feels exactly like an area in my dreams, like a new unexplored part. Definitely feels like it's a part of it though. I don't go far from the camp for the rest of the night, and sleep WTH a sharpened stick and pocket knife near me. Family thinks I was just being a normal kid and making a weapon for the hell of it. A few more weird things happened on that trip, but the feeling of deja vu was easily the strangest. Not a terrifying story, I know, but it still scared the hell out of teenager me.
Back when I was a beach bum. Sleeping on beach on Savary Island. I hear crunch 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 of careful steps in the stone beach. I'm only 25% awake at this point. Sit up, bolt upright, and yell incoherently to scare whoever is walking towards. As I'm doing this, I'm thinking this is a small island. No predators. Why am I yelling like a madman? It was a doe and fawn, of course. They stared at me for 30 seconds, then bolted. Rarely felt sillier.
"14 years old. Primitive campground camping with mom and dad. No power or water, but has various clearings for tents. Arrive at campground and find no other tents, people or cars there to our enjoyment. Parents begin setting up the campsite and tent. Start exploring campground. Shitty playground and roped off swimming area in decent size lake, the usual. Decide to hop on the swings because bored. Swinging for about 2 minutes when I see a figure standing at the edge of the campground. Get weird feeling because I have no clue how long it was watching me. Quit swinging in favor of not getting molested by mysterious figure in the distance. Get back to campsite and tell my dad about thinking I saw someone. Dad plays it off as it almost being dark and my eyes playing tricks on me. Whatever. Stay at campsite, eat dinner and sleep. Next morning and afternoon is completely normal, average camping. Do some fishing with my dad and walk the trails later on with both parents. Day 2 is coming to a close and my parents are cooking dinner. Walking along the sea wall, lake wall. Approaching the man beach for swimming area. Suddenly something wet grasps and slide across my ankle. Fall back into grass and hear water splashing. Stand up and look in water. Picturesque old man in water. Says in a thick southern accent, "Get in, boy." Obviously screw that. Cheese it the hell out of there, back to campsite freaking out. Tell parents and my pops is obviously enraged, screaming looking for old man. No old man to be found. Pack up our little campsite and get the hell out of there before it got fully dark. Didn't realize the gravity of what happened until a few years later. TFW, I don't want to know what would have happened if he actually got a grip on my ankle.
Go in a woods with friends. One wants to see the waterfall. Hike 2 hours to see a trickle coming down a rock. No shit, I pissed off the top of it and it doubled in size. Hike out. Didn't see anyone on the hike in. Don't pass anyone on the way out. An hour into the hike out, I turned to take a picture. There's a guy 100 yards behind us. Defuke, did you come from? Long shaggy hair, brown field jacket in the middle of summer. Wave at him. He waves back, but his arm pivots at the shoulder, not the elbow. That's not kosher. Friend asks who I'm waving at. The guy back. Where'd he go? The rest of the hike sounds in the forest like something stepping on twigs and rocks.
This happened 2 years ago in the summer. Go out with new friend. We take 2 old bikes. Go on a hill to drink alcohol and smoke some cigs and relax, 40 minutes from our town. We start chilling and remember a funny video about a gnome armed with an axe. Look up for that video on the phone. Genuine laughs as we mock the bearded killer of South America. Oh damn, it's late. Grab the bike and go down the hill. Road is blocked by a chopped tree freshly cut with an axe leaning on it. Grab the bike in my arms and jump over the tree, friend follows. Go back to the town as fast as we can. Friend is very scared, we go to bed in his home. Never told this story to anyone since today.
Not spoopy, but pretty scary at the time. On an island in the Canadian Arctic for an archaeological excavation, only one hamlet on the island, not even a town. Camp is 18 kilometers away from the hamlet. Site is another 2 kilometers away on cliff eroding into Arctic Ocean. All 4 crew members issued little pen flare bear bangers in case polar bears show up, one local guy with a shotgun assigned as bear monitor. Out at sight one day, bear monitor takes off on his four-wheeler without a word. Look up and see a polar bear headed along the cliff towards us, maybe 2 kilometers away. Decide to take our lunch break. I wander over to the cliff admiring the awesome view. Notice 3 or 4 white things bobbing in the water, getting nearer, point it out to everyone. Nobody can see what I'm talking about. Look around and realize I'm the only one who doesn't wear glasses. Ask to borrow binocs to show them, sorry Anon, the bear monitor was wearing them. White things getting closer to shore. Everyone can see them now and we realize it's a female polar bear with cubs about to come ashore. Bears come ashore directly in front of us and start sniffing the air, watching us, moving towards gully connecting the beach to the cliff. Bear monitor has disappeared over a ridge, no way to signal him. It's over. Mxd. Fire the bear bangers, no care given by the polar bears. Look around for some weapon, nothing but hand trowels. I really wanted to have sex one last time before I died, but oh well. Finally, the bear monitor shows up, fires all the bear banger and buckshot shells as warning shots, only 2 slug shells left in the tube. Bears don't care. RDA. Eventually get bored of the humans and their shitty fireworks show, leave. Turns out a bowhead whale carcass washed ashore like 3 kilometers away from the site and all the polar bears were coming ashore to scavenge.
Gold panning with a friend and our dogs in Washington State, 20 minutes south of Canada. 100-year-old miner's cabin still keeps the rain off you. Stuff carved into beams and walls from 80 years ago. Chessboard in corner, play a game with extra bullets, cigarette lighters and other stuff for peeves. About midnight, Buddy yells that he sees eyes outside. Bring lantern and go and look. Sure as hell about 50 feet away up in the trees there's 2 eyes reflecting red in the flashlight beam. They're 9 or 10 inches apart. Big grizzly. Damn, it wants to eat our dogs. Get my sweet speed 6.357 from the cabin. Shoot at tree between us and the eyes. It is an extremely loud gun. The eyes turn uphill and it skedaddles. Shoot the tree again. Go back in the cabin and try to sleep. Remember, door latch is just a flimsy rusty tab of metal. Remember, .357 soft nose won't stop a 1,000 pounds bear. My gun-shy dog doesn't want to sleep near me. I didn't see any recognizable tracks when I looked the next morning, just some scrapes in the dirt. I didn't think to check the trees for hair though.
Not spooky, but a scary experience. Be me, always loved outdoor life and mountain life, have a nice chalet in the Dolomites where I usually go to relax and forget about everything. I know perfectly all the trails and all the woods all around me, but I've never slept in the forest nor I went night camping. Decide to do it alone. The plan was, start hiking at 3 p.m., arrive at the chosen spot at 5:36 p.m., pitch the tent, eat, sleep, wake up at 4:30 a.m., hike for another hour and watch the sunrise from the top of the mountain. For various reasons, I start hiking very late at 5 p.m. At 6:30 p.m. is getting darker, and I decide to not proceed anymore, since the trail was getting much more exposed and slippery, too dangerous to continue hiking with the headlight. Choose another spot way much lower, realize I won't be able to reach the top of the mountain in the morning. Pitch the tent on the edge of a wood, 100 meters away from Scree, it was the only good spot, and start eating. Laws are very strict, I absolutely cannot start a campfire otherwise a ranger would probably arrive with an helicopter and shove its foot up in my ass. Also no guns, so just a knife. Everything is nice, until it gets pitch dark. Fear and adrenaline starting to build up. First time in the woods in the night. All alone. Bad idea. Get into the sleeping bag hugging my 30 centimeters hunting knife like it was a teddy bear. Suddenly it starts blowing a huge wind, but since I'm in a small canyon, basically it blows from side to side over the trees and all I hear is huge, continuous howl. Hear some animal noises at the top of the scree, probably mountain goats. And they start making rocks fall down the scree 100 meters from me. After 1 hour, they stop. From midnight to 2:30 a.m., hear something groveling over my tent and moving around it. At first I thought it was some tall grass that was being moved by the wind. But then I heard what I thought it was a sniff. Nope, nope, nope. Start panicking. Think about getting the headlight, bolt the hell away, go back home and pick up all my stuff the day after. Realize it's a bad idea, even if I know the trail like my pockets. Start thinking what animal it could be. There are no bears in that area, the nearest one is 80 kilometers far. The most dangerous animals in that area are angry cows and foxes. Probably it was some kind of curious deer or chamois, but then I hear it again and again. Stick my head out of the tent. See nothing, except for a beautiful sky full of stars. Hear again something moving around my tent and sniffing. I was so nervous, frightened and full of adrenaline that I fapped. Fell asleep, woke up 2 hours later. At 5 a.m. decide that it's time to go to see the sunrise from a nearby clearing. Outside was almost still pitch black, but the sky was starting to faintly brighten up. Put on my headlight, stick the head out of the tent and I randomly illuminate a bush that was 20 meters from me. 2 huge eyes light up and stare at me from behind the branches. I stare at it. We stare at each other for a solid 15 to 20 seconds without moving. My heart wasn't beating. That thing turns around and vanishes in the bushes, but the weird thing is that it did not make any sound. Completely silent. No leaves or grass moving, no trampling. Go to the opening, and wait for the sunrise. It was beautiful. Pack my stuff up, go home and sleep again because I was so tired.